Good afternoon, I'm Tamia Folks.
And I'm Lily Zoller. Today on the Badger Report, we will have updates on all things Wisconsin, and it's been a busy week. As voting season kicks off, one Milwaukee organization is taking a different route. Hop on board the Badger Report to see this caravan get out the vote.
What's one thing that you can't miss when walking down a neighborhood street during this time of year? Political yard signs. Are these signs causing more harm than good? Tune in to find out.
For many people, Halloween traditions will look very different this year, but there's one activity that you won't have to cancel. We'll tell you about this COVID-safe haunted house on the Badger Report.
From Vilas Hall on the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, this is the Badger Report.
Thanks for joining us today.
Cases of COVID-19 continue to skyrocket in Wisconsin this week amid the national pandemic. 1,762 cases were added Thursday, along with 22 deaths, reaching the weekly record high for the state. Officials are concerned that the situation may continue to get worse before it gets better. A field hospital set to treat COVID-19 patients at the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds has been open for more than a week, but only one person has been admitted. Doctors say the facility is designed to treat non-critical COVID-19 patients and take pressure off of state hospitals.
You know, it's by necessity, it has to be somewhat bare bones because it's being stood up literally as we speak, but it's still sufficient to meet the needs of many people who need care but don't need ICU level care.
Theta Care's EMS coordinator, Jason Selwichka, says that patients are not enthusiastic about the transition.
But again, everybody's scared right now, and then to go down and stay on a cot, essentially an army cot, it's not necessarily comfortable.
However, as cases continue to surge in Wisconsin, officials say that more patients will be more likely to be admitted soon.
As cases of COVID surge, a lawsuit challenging Wisconsin's mask mandate was struck down by a judge this week. The 60-day mandate issued in September marks Governor Tony Evers' third use of his emergency powers to fight the coronavirus since March. Evers then scored his second win in the court this week after an order was upheld that limits the capacity of indoor bars and restaurants to just 25%. That order is in place now until November 6th, when the mask mandate will run until November 21st. Political yard signs look different this year as we head into the November 2020 presidential election.
Sally Young with the Badger Report has the story.
In the battleground state of Wisconsin, political yard signs take on an entirely new meaning this election year.
I think people are feeling more emboldened to make their political beliefs known and publicized now.
As record-breaking numbers of yard signs are distributed across the state, tolerance is decreasing.
What I think has changed, unfortunately, is our attitudes towards yard signs as a form of political expression.
Recent upticks in voter intimidation tactics reflect a highly polarized nation.
There's more attempts made by people on both sides to vandalize yard signs, to steal them.
Take Dane County, for example, where strings of Biden signs line the street. I was hard-pressed to find any Trump signs in the area. The chair of the Republican Party of Dane County says that although Dane County is the third largest Republican voter turnout in the state, outward displays of conservative opinion is almost non-existent.
Takes some guts to go out and put that Trump sign out and then have it destroyed or vandalized. I think that's particularly has a chilling effect on free speech.
In past elections, it was common to see opposing yard signs in one area. McLeod says we are now entering a new phase of majority rules.
If you're a Democrat living in a red neighborhood or a Republican living in a blue neighborhood, you may be less likely to put out a yard sign.
For the Badger Report, I'm Sally Young.
As the presidential race heats up, Wisconsin is seeing a record number of absentee voters so far this year. Over 900,000 ballots have already been returned to election officials, a number that represents over 30% of all votes cast in 2016. The presidential candidates are campaigning in Wisconsin weeks before the election, and vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris held a rally in Milwaukee Tuesday, while President Trump is expected to make a stop in the state on Saturday.
For a lot of UW-Madison students, this election season will be their first time voting. In an important swing state, the university is setting up tents to make it easier for students to register and to vote. In-person absentee voting and registration will be available on campus 9 hours a day, 7 days a week. From now until October 30th, outdoor tents are being set up at Memorial Union and 2 other locations downtown. Many students are taking advantage of these tents and recognize the importance of voting.
Yeah, I think it's really important for any first-time voter, any new voter to come out and vote, register to vote, really make a big impact, especially in a swing state like Wisconsin. You know, every vote counts, and we need as many people as possible.
Though there were large lines, students were able to make it inside to cast their vote.
Overall, the process was pretty smooth. Took about an hour to get through line after I registered, but I appreciate that they're doing this on campus and making it accessible for all the students.
With campus-wide Get Out the Vote efforts, students' voices are begging to be heard. It's no secret that the 2020 election has stirred a lot of excitement for voters nationwide.
I went to Milwaukee to see what the excitement is all about. As of today, over 31 million voters have cast their ballot, and that is 5 times the number of ballots cast at this time in 2016. Across the state, early voting is being offered to voters to aid them in gaining access to the ballot. In Milwaukee, community organizations are taking a different route to mobilize voters.
We're offering free rides to and from the poll throughout Milwaukee County.
The organization will be giving rides to community members at all 16 Milwaukee polling locations for the duration of the early voting period. Jackson hopes the effort will play a role in informing the community about the importance of voting and the power of their voice.
And just try to galvanize the community to get excited, the exercise of right that so many people died, especially in our community, the black community. Where we're having a lot of misunderstanding about our votes don't matter. And we're trying to teach and educate the community that if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be coming up with all these different technical ways to keep us from the polls.
So in April, Tamia, there were only 5 places in Milwaukee to vote. What are they doing now to make sure that everyone has access to a ballot?
Absolutely. So to prevent those long lines, Milwaukee has 16 polling locations that they're offering for people to go vote early at. And also they have absentee drop boxes throughout the city. And in addition to that, local organizations similar to Expo are hosting events where they're getting people out to vote and doing voter education, which seems to be really helpful to community members. As voters get out to the polls, freshmen on college campuses are being forced to stay in. See more about what the university social distancing efforts are doing after the break.
And later, we'll dig into a toxic chemical problem that might disrupt plans to redevelop a 100-year-old meat processing plant on the city's north side.
You can try, but you'll never stop a badger. Because we badgers are born with curious minds and endless heart. When we see a curve in the road, we speed up. When there are mask shortages for first responders, we make our own supply chain. When there's a world on pause, we sharpen our claws. Through thunder, fire, and pandemics, we'll keep going. Because after all, you can't stop a badger.
COVID-19 is turning the college experience upside down. With most in-person activities restricted, freshmen are struggling to make connections.
Reagan Zimmerman with the Badger Report has the story.
College is a time to make new friends. But this year, COVID-19 is not making the college transition easy for freshmen like Maddie Huber.
It's been really hard. You can't go door knocking. You can't just go and meet people.
She met a group of friends, but is still missing something.
And just classes especially, missing out on that one-on-one connection. It's so hard to meet people that are going through the same things as you.
Huber lives in Whitty, along with thousands of other students. So she experienced the mandatory quarantine that happened during the second week of school here at UW. She felt trapped in her dorm room, but she was one of the fortunate ones because she tested negative. So she was able to travel home to Berlin and quarantine with her family and be able to spend time with them.
I personally just couldn't be able to stay in the same four walls.
Staying inside is taking a toll on students' personal development.
It's difficult to figure out who you are when you don't have the kinds of activities that are typical of a college experience.
Brown thinks all students will be affected long term, but one group more than others.
So the students who come from underrepresented groups have more challenges. These times multiply those challenges. So we need to pay particular attention to some of the groups for whom this experience enhances the marginalization that they feel.
For the Badger Report, I'm Reagan Zimmerman.
Thanks, Reagan. UW-Madison's student government recently voted in favor of taking down the statue of Abraham Lincoln on Bascom Hill. Currently, the college Republicans of UW-Madison are encouraging students to sign a petition supporting the statue in response to the vote.
Last year, UW-Madison's Student Inclusion Coalition, or SIC, created a recording in response to the university's controversial homecoming video. The video didn't represent UW's BIPOC community. Today, they will be releasing a new project.
We are kind of constructing a 1 year later update of the demands. So that kind of consists of, addressing what happened last year, but then moving forward, how the administration has kind of progressed with demands.
Some of these demands include challenging the underfunded programs that are aimed at students of color. Look out for this video today to learn more about what the university has done in response to the requests. The Badger Report had reached out to the university and they were unable to provide a statement at this time. As homecoming week continues, the virtual celebration marches on. Tonight, the fifth quarter will start at 5, followed by the football game against Illinois at 7. Tomorrow, the Wisconsin Alumni Association will host a multicultural game night. Today is the last homecoming day to fill the virtual hill with flamingos in support of UW. One flamingo represents a donation made to the university, and as of this morning, above $196,000 was raised, standing 1,787 flamingos on the hill.
A toxic chemical problem on Madison's east side might disrupt plans to redevelop a 100-year-old meat processing plant.
The Badger Report's Stephen Potter has the story.
For 100 years, the Oscar Mayer Company, made famous by its hot dogs, cold cuts, and the Wienermobile, operated a meat processing plant on the city's north side. When the plant closed in 2017, city leaders saw an opportunity for redevelopment.
Most of the focus of the city was to create more housing and employment at the same time.
The city also wants to build a new bus garage on the northern 15 acres of the site. While planning for that potential bus garage, the city learned, thanks to concerns raised by residents, about a very serious problem at the former factory.
And this particular place being used for 100 years as an industry, so there's a lot of contamination.
The primary concern, at least for now, is with the building on the other side of this fence, which was formerly known as the Spice Room, and now is simply called Building 43. Before using Building 43 as a bus garage, the city would need to clean up and remove a chemical known as trichloroethylene, or TCE.
At some extent, we know that what type of contamination this building contained, but at the same time, we do not know how far it went. And that's a big question mark in this whole Oscar Mayer picture.
One environmental advocacy group, however, says that the TCE in Building 43 is just the tip of the iceberg, and that many chemicals are spread throughout the 72-acre site.
It's all sorts of different chemicals, from TCE to lead to arsenic to petroleum. The list really goes on.
Such chemicals have been known to be particularly harmful for pregnant women and young children, and TCE specifically has been linked to kidney and liver disease as well as cancer. While such contamination could disrupt plans for redevelopment, Alderman Abbas says the city is committed to doing what's necessary.
And the city still need to really make sure we clean the contamination either through us or either through the private developer.
Next step for the redevelopment plan include a public meeting on November 5th, and of course, finding out exactly how widespread the contamination is. The Badger Report reached out to the Kraft Heinz Company, the parent company for Oscar Mayer, but they did not respond to a request for comment. I'm Stephen Potter for the Badger Report.
This week, peak fall leaf season has hit Madison as temperatures continue to drop. The Badger Report's RI has this weekend's weather report after the break.
You can try, but you'll never stop a badger. Because we badgers are born with curious minds and endless heart. When we see a curve in the road, we speed up. When there are mask shortages for first responders, we make our own supply chain. When there's a world on pause, we sharpen our claws. Through thunder, fire, and pandemics, we'll keep going. Because after all, you can't stop a badger.
This week, foliage is reaching its peak in Madison as nature shows up in a riot of yellow, orange, and red colors.
Luckily, enjoying great scenery while taking a walk in cool weather is something that the pandemic has not changed.
I love it when we get a little blue in the sky. The colors on the trees are all changing and really kind of at their peak right now, so that's fun.
For Sally, fall is a lot of good memories and thinking back to childhood and Halloween.
This time of year, I used to, love all of the pumpkin spice flavors and the holidays around this time of year. And
during these unprecedented times, it is important to enjoy natural beauty to relieve stress. Get out now to enjoy the fall leaves at their peak.
The Dane County Farmers Market has pushed the end of its outdoor season until November 21st. The Farmers Market is at the Alliant Energy Center and is available for people to drive or walk through on Saturdays.
Now, as the seasons start to change, we're all asking ourselves, when are we going to see some snow?
To find out if we'll see any this weekend, we're on to RI for the weather.
The leaves are falling rapidly off the trees, and this week we'll see a change to more fall-like temperatures. For today, we have partly cloudy skies with a higher of 49 degrees, and tonight expect more cloudiness at a lower of 35 degrees, with winds blowing northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday will start to cool around 47 degrees with mostly cloudy skies, followed by lower temperatures hitting 38 degrees. Sunday we are looking at a higher of 42 degrees with showers developing later in the day. Keep in mind that there is a 30% chance of rain, so be sure to have an umbrella and raincoat on hands. Evening expect showers turning into mixed rain and snow with the lower temperatures dropping to mid-30s. Remember driving safe as roads are going to be slick. That's your weather, and I'm Ariel Cheral for the Badger Report. Back to you guys.
Tailgating, jumping around, and game day bibs. How will the Badger football game look different this year? Coming after the break.
You can try, but you'll never stop a badger. Because we badgers are born with curious minds and endless heart. When we see a curve in the road, we speed up. When there are mask shortages for first responders, we make our own supply chain. When there's a world on pause, we sharpen our claws. Through thunder, fire, and pandemics, we'll keep going. Because after all, you can't stop a badger.
While not all fall university athletics have begun at UW-Madison, the Badgers Report's Will Whitmore joins us to give the latest.
Thanks, Tamia. Badger football is back, but things will look a little different this year. Instead of playing in front of 80,000 fans at Camp Randall, Wisconsin will have to play Illinois Friday without the hometown crowd due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But COVID isn't the only obstacle the Badgers will face this season. Freshman quarterback Graham Mertz will be making his highly anticipated first start after senior quarterback Jack Cohn was lost to a foot injury. Mertz and company will look to avoid losing to the Illini for the second consecutive year. Kickoff is set for 7 p.m. on Friday night. While COVID-19 has severely limited high school football action in the Madison area, the surrounding Wisconsin towns have gotten back into the swing of things. In our game of the week, high-octane Division VII action was headed by the Cardinals of Highland and the number 3 ranked Chieftains of Potosi-Cassville. Potosi came out rolling early, led by Levi Broom, going up 13-0 early, but the Cardinals bounced back with Drew Nanke in a rewoken passing attack to claim the upset victory of 32-27. In other action, the longest-standing metro rivalry in Wisconsin was played under the lights as Baraboo hosted Reedsburg. It wasn't much of a contest as the Thunderbirds rolled to a 24-0 victory. And that's all for sports. Back to you, Lily.
If you're not tuning into the Badgers this Friday, you can find a spooky activity right downtown.
More after the break.
You can try, but you'll never stop a Badger. Because we Badgers are born with curious minds and endless heart. When we see a curve in the road, we speed up. When there are mask shortages for first responders, we make our own supply chain. When there's a world on pause, we sharpen our claws. Through thunder, fire, and pandemics, we'll keep going. Because after all, you can't stop a Badger.
This year, there's only one haunted house open in Madison, and it's unlike any that you've ever seen before.
I got the chance to go, so let's take a look.
The staff at Breeze Stevens Field had to get creative when planning events this fall. While haunted houses may seem impossible amidst a pandemic, they were determined to make it work.
There's not a ton to do right now in Madison. That's kind of, a safe outdoor event, especially kind of getting the spooky October feel.
The staff converted the Breeze Stevens Stadium into an outdoor haunted house, but doing this was no easy task as they have to maintain social distancing guidelines.
The masks are always required, social distancing. We ask that people that come here come with just a family unit or whoever they're cohabitating with.
But these guidelines don't stop the Breeze Screamin's Field from offering all the thrills and scares of a typical haunted house.
I had a mom and her daughter actually come through. She ended up falling to the ground because I accidentally tripped her. And while trying to get her up and stay in character, she ended up squatting down and saying I just peed myself.
Customers walk through a series of creepy scenes in each suite of the field. Actors, music, and lighting give the outdoor experience the classic haunted house scare.
I love the fact that I can hear people coming through and they're like, oh, we're entering the butcher's room.
Breeze Screamin's Field is open Friday and Saturday nights, now through Halloween between 6:30 and 10:30 at night. Tickets can be purchased on their website.
All right, so Lily, how unique was that experience? What was it like to go to that haunted house?
It was certainly a new experience for me. I've never been to an outdoor haunted house before, but I can assure you that it being outside did not affect how scary it was.
Well, hopefully the Badger football game does not turn out as scary as that haunted house.
True that. That's all for today. Thanks for tuning in.
For the Badger Report, I'm Tamia Folks.
And I'm Lily Zoller. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great weekend.